Alright, I'm going to show you guys how to do some coil pot tubing today. First thing you want to do here is get your two color rods, and these here are experimental 19, which might be hard to see because of the tint on the camera. First thing you do is you pick out two of close to equal diameter. You don't have to, but it makes it a little bit easier. And I'm going to be doing a coil pot with two rods. I suggest when you start you might try one, but I'm going to show you the way you really want to do it once you are confident with doing the coil pot part. So get them nice and clean. That will make your end product much nicer. I've already cleaned these a little bit before the video, but I'm going to give them a quick wipe there. And then make sure you have some sort of handle. So the first thing we're going to want to do is fuse these two rods together into one long continuous rod, so we don't lose our flow in the middle of the coil pot. And the ends kind of have a little bit of, you'll see they'll bubble up usually on most rods, so to have a nice clean thing where you can't see where it goes from one rod to another, I tweeze just that little bit off both of my rods on the ends that are going to be connected together. So then we're going to take these two and just seal them together. Now once those are nice and solidified there, you're going to want to take some sort of clear and just seal it up here to the end. And this will be a handle so that you can get the full use out of the entire rod. So now you're going to want to put this down and let it cool. So rod's nice and cool here, we're ready to go. Now I'm going to hold it about in the middle to balance it. It's a pretty big rod here, and you're going to want a bit of a bushy, bigger, more powerful flame for this part here. And we're going to start on the top here, and we're going to roll this direction here, because basically what's happening as we spin the rod this way, so the spinning is going to pull the rod up away from the inner part. Well, as it spins around, gravity is going to then pull it down, so you're not going to have the tendency to have this close up on you, which is what happens a lot of times when you're coil potting. I'll try and explain it a little bit more as I do it in action here. See that? So I'm laying it onto the top as I'm spinning away from the center. And then as it goes, it immediately goes down where gravity then pulls it away from the center as well. So therefore it helps you. It has a tendency to want to go and close up the tube. And this way it helps you control the diameter of the opening of that tube. It actually wants to open up on you, and you have to kind of concentrate to close it back down. So you can see it's making contact with the tube that I'm creating just outside the flame. So as it travels through the flame, it's getting pre-warmed up to by the point when it gets out of the flame on the edge there where it makes contact with the tube. It's nice and molten. It's also kind of nice to have your flame sort of graze that tube slightly, warming up the spot that it's going to make contact. So we're getting close to the spot of where we've used up one rod. So you can see what one rod gets you. And two will get you, of course, about double that. And fusing 3 rods together just gets a lot to manage. This is the comfortable level, is about 2 rods. But when you're starting out, you can try 1 rod, or if you only have 1 rod, you can do 1 rod. Sometimes it's, just coil potting up 1 rod is a quick way to get a little bit more piece of tube if you're running out for your project. Okay, so now that we're on to the 2nd rod, we have to be a little more careful about not flaring it out as much and trying to actually start to close it back down. And then we'll end up with like a football sort of shape. So now that I'm getting to the end of the rod, I have to really be on about putting it on the inner lip so that it starts closing in. And if you don't close it in, it's not the worst. You can always marver it back down, but since it's a coil pot, it does have a bit of memory, so it can give you a weirder working tube. You can see where that handle came in now, that I basically got the last bit of that rod all used up. Right now I'm going to melt this end in and get it all nice and melted in and as good a tubing as I can, so I can put a handle up to it and do the same thing to the other side. Now I'm going to blow in it just a little bit. I don't want to lose the heat base that I just created, but I want to stretch it out, and you can see that as I puff into it, it's going to help even out all the wonkiness and unevenness of the tube. Now the tip of it here is a little thicker, so I'm going to give that a little bit more heat than the rest of it, so that when I puff it, it helps even out the wall thickness. Alright, now that that's relatively clean, and by that I mean nice and even and not so wonky, you can't see the lines of the melted in rod anymore. I'm going to pop out the end so I can collar up to another rod and work on the other side. Now this side, since it's just melted in rod, it can be temperamental and blow up on you. And so you want to ease it into the heat. tweeze off this bit of clear so I get all 100% color. Now I'm going to do the same thing I basically just did. As you could sort of see that I did on the other one, I like to get the tip of it nice and clean first. That sort of sets up for the rest of it, or it's easier at this point. You can sort of clean up, melt in the whole thing, and then clean up your tip, or melt in your tip and get it even. But I think it's just easiest to do right now, before you melt it thicker, melting the rest of it basically. A little extra heat right on the tip here to even out the wall weight, and now I'm going to heat the whole thing. You'll notice I'm holding this pretty much level to the ground, level to gravity. If you go this way, it's going to droop that like that, and if you come back here, it's going to gather back up on itself. You want it to basically just stay neutral, so you want to hold it in that neutral parallel position to where it's just staying right where it is. It's only melting in. Now you can control it doing just what I was just talking about. I'm holding it at a downward angle now because it was, as you blow it out, it sort of goes back on itself and gathers up into a ball. I'm trying to maintain kind of like a football shape here. Alright, so another thing I forgot to mention, you really want 3 handles prepped up for this. The one you coil pot on, the one I just used, and the one I'm about to use here. Because I want to melt in that center area there, because you see the 2 ends are nice, but now the middle is a little bit wonky there. And so in order to do that, I could put a punny on the side, but I'm just going to put another handle on this side, because I'm going to end up stretching this out and dividing it up. Now it's a good idea. Take one of these ear plugs, plug up one of these ends. And that went a little off center when I did that, but I just corrected it. You're going to want to thicken that up, basically. That nice and thick. Give it a little puff. Now I'm going to go right into pulling this down. You're going to use it in a bigger size, you don't have to. I'm going to be using this in smaller tubing, and this is one of the trickier things. Now since it has a memory, when you go to pull this down, you have to get it super duper hot to erase that memory. That's why I only sort of pulled half of it here at one time. I'm not going to pull this side down as much, so I have a bigger diameter cheese to use for my project. I'm going to split it right here. This is for my project. You might split it differently, you might pull it differently. But that was just to give you a bit of options there. Alright, there you go. Hope that helps you out. Dirty Beat out.